Hi, Ify.
Hi, hello.
I I was mentioning about the number of classes to be conducted. We have already done 28 sessions with yesterday's one. We have sessions wise, we have left out with two or three sessions, but whatever topics I have to cover, till then we'll complete it. I am expecting 3 4 days next week. We should be able to close. Hello, you're there? Right. Let me share my screen. You're able to see my screen, right? Fola, you're able to see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Good, good. If you're there, if he, yeah. As I was mentioning, Fola, we are discussing about the requirement analysis and design definition knowledge area. So for that, the outcomes that we are expecting, the tasks, especially we need to talk about the tasks that we do: specify and model requirements, verify requirements, validate requirements, define requirements architecture, define design options, analyze potential value, and recommend solution. These are the tasks we are discussing. Yesterday, we were discussing about the specify and model requirements, and that we were discussing about the different techniques. See here, business rules analysis. These are the different techniques, decision model elements. In business rule analysis, decision table. You would have heard about decision tables, no? Paula, have you? Decision is like suppose here in this case, if you see, this is a table for insurance premium. If the person is 0 to less than 15 years and smoking yes or no is not applicable and pre-existing disease is there, then premium will be base price plus into 150%. Otherwise, if it is pre-existing disease is not there, the base price will be collected. Like that, at different conditions, the premium will change. Have you got it? That is decision table. Decision tree. Suppose you're going to, if you are ordering like Amazon and other things, if you are placing an order, if you are placing an order less than 5,000, less than or equal to 5,000, if you don't have a membership, you may get 5% discount. If you have a gold membership, you get 10% discount. If you have a platinum membership, you get 20% discount. This is called decision tree. Okay, now concept modeling. Up to this we have done. Now data dictionary, you would have heard this word data dictionary. Data dictionary is where you will have all the information about the data, because certain things what you don't understand, whatever is the column names or the some metadata. So that you don't understand by seeing the structure of the database data, or you have any data model diagrams. If you don't understand by just seeing that, so for that detailed narration will be there in data dictionaries. Data dictionary is used to standardize a definition of a data element. Suppose you have got multiple columns, you are using abbreviations, or you are using a pattern in the name of the column for data. So that abbreviation, you will have the details in data dictionary used to standardize usage and meaning of data element between solutions and between stakeholders, known as metadata repositories. Single repository of corporate metadata used in conjunction with entity relationship diagram. Have you heard this word entity relationship diagram? Any one of you? If you have you heard by any chance? Entity, what is meant by entity? Entity, have you heard? Paula, have you heard entity?
Entity is like a business entity.
Yeah, means what? Business entity? Yes, fine. That means what in the data part of it? When
In
you
the
say
world,
in data, when you are storing the data in database, they call entity.
I
Entity
don't
can
know.
be business entity. Entity can be a person. Entity can be like what you said, business entity. A department can be entity. So that if you are putting in the data, suppose you are putting as tables, even in Excel, if you think, if you are putting the information about, suppose all employees, if you are putting employee names will be the first column could be employee ID, second could be employee name, and further details will be there. So this here, the employee is an entity. If you are talking about organization, organization is an entity. A unit of organization is an entity. A department is an entity. So entity relationship from one entity to other entity. That means one table, let us think one entity details are there. And from that, how is the other entity related? So like you say, one person, one employee belongs to only one department. One employee works for one department. So that is a relationship. One employee cannot be there in two departments. So that's how you put it. Now, one employee can have more than one tasks to perform, or more than one say functional areas, or areas where they have to work. Though he is belonging to one department, he may have to work in multiple areas. So something like that. So if you are putting the relationship one to many, many to one, they call. So that relationship is called entity relationship diagram. In database, how they are related, we put as a diagram. That you may not understand by seeing the diagram itself. So for that, you need more details from data dictionary. So used in conjunction with entity relationship diagram. That is the meaning. Requires regular maintenance. See, initially people will make this create a data dictionary, but they may not update. If you don't update, it will be of no use. So you need to have regular maintenance for that. Okay. So data dictionary will have data elements, primitive data elements, composite data elements. That is, primitive data elements is the basic like name, alias, values. But composite can be the sequence, repetitions, all that. This is more to do with the data. If you want me to explain further, I can. But otherwise, I don't think you will be able to comprehend so easily because it is more to do with the data. So if you understand that data dictionary is for explaining data elements which are stored in the database, that is enough. Fola, you are with me?
Yes.
Okay. If you want more, I don't think it will be more complicated if I start explaining what is data, what is database, and other things. I don't hope that that is required at this stage for this context. Okay. If we have you understood this data dictionary, what I mentioned?
Yes.
Good, thank you. So if you look at here, the primitive data elements can be like I told you about employee. Employee, when I say employee name can be data element, first name, middle name, last name, whatever details. Now composite could be employee name, first name plus middle name plus last name. If I add, it becomes composite data element. So telephone number, I can put ISD or plus STD plus phone number. That becomes the total telephone number. So when you are putting the data element, you are putting the split up and then you are putting it. But you can have a composite data element as telephone number, which is a combination. So that's how it is. Data dictionary is. Now there is another term called glossary. Data dictionary is more to do with the data. Glossary is like our any glossary where you get the definitions, total details about that. It is defines key terms and synonyms relevant to business domain. common language, organized and continuously accessible to all stakeholders. Glossaries, is because in any document, there will be too many words, abbreviations used. So words which are beyond a normal comprehension, normal usage, like what I just mentioned, entity relationship diagram. So entity, what does entity mean? That will come into glossary. It is, if it is a normal word, normal verb, normal usage, so you don't need to explain that. That doesn't come into glossary. Only words which are special and abbreviations that are used, all those things come into glossary. So that's what here glossary elements. A term is included in glossary when the term is unique to a domain. Multiple definitions exist. The definition is outside of terms common use. There are chances of misunderstanding. If this is there, if these qualifications are there, that will come into glossary. When developing a glossary, all definitions should be clear, concise, and brief. Acronyms should be spelled out. There must be easy and reliable access. Editing should be limited to specific stakeholders. Otherwise, meanings will change. If everybody is going to edit it, meanings will totally change. So the idea of that is, if you have for a specific domain, any specific words that are used, those words have to be explained. So if it is a common word, you don't need to explain anything unique, specific to that domain, or it is going to cause some confusion. You may have to explain that now. There is another thing which is very popular called data flow diagram. Data flow diagram is how data flows. So data flows from one entity to other entity. So that entire thing, how you put the flow of data, that is called data flow diagram. It shows where the data comes from and which activities process the data, and if the output results are stored or utilized by another activity or external entity. So that entire thing comes in your data flow diagram. Illustrates movement and transformation of data between external entities and processes. So that's how data flow diagram is done. Data flow diagram. So for data flow diagram, rules are input. Rule 1: inputs must either come directly from an external party or be created by another process. Rule 2: every process must have at least one input and one output. The moment you say process will have one input, one output. In process, there will be multiple steps also. You understand this? Wherever we spoke about process, we spoke about input and output. So that is important. For any process, there should be input, there should be output. Rule 3: every output must flow to another process, external party, or data store. So there should be some kind of either termination or further flow. So that's how data flow diagram should be written. So either it should be output should go to another process, or it should go to external party, or it should get stored. So if the data is getting stored, there is no further process immediately. Otherwise, there will be, if it is going to another process, there is some further process happening. It can go to external entity also. Data can be shared with external entity also. Clear? Fola?
So yes, my question is, as a business analyst, why do I need to know all this information about data flow?
That's where I was little browsing through fast. But this is important for you to understand that such a thing exists. Because when you come across something, it should not be a surprise. What does data flow diagram means? Sometimes you may have to refer to understand. If you are inquisitive, you can get into how the data is flowing below the in case of software, how the data is flowing within the database, how that is getting processed. Suppose you are getting some problem, some data is getting misrepresented. You should know how the data flows in within the system. So those are important, but not a must. So if you are interested, if you are inquisitive, you can know this. So, but if it is, it's not a must. It's not a must.
Okay, so I'm not inquisitive. I just want to limit myself. I just want to
Right,
limit
right.
myself to what
Be
I
happy.
do
You
on a
can be.
daily basis.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
So yeah, no issues.
It's complicated. That's why I'm
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
confused.
If you earlier metadata and all, I skipped for that reason only. It would be more complicated for you.
It's
But anyway,
complicated.
yeah, yeah. So, but anyway, we just keep leave a ear to me, your ear,
Okay.
so that you can just hear whatever I say.
Okay.
And I mean, some place, if you hear these words, you are not perplexed. That's the only idea.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right. Now, for defining this data flow diagram, some people have given the standards, that Gane-Sarson standard and Uden standard. Like external agent, you are putting in a square box, and the process you are putting in a square box with curved edges, and you are putting process number, process like that in Gane Sarson, and you are putting data store in a rectangular one. Urdan is another way of representation, another notation, where you see data process as a circle. So like that, you can have whichever standard that you use one notation and prepare the diagram, if at all you are doing that. Data modeling, data model describes entities, classes, or data objects. This is again more to do with the database. I don't want to complicate it. So there are different data models: conceptual data model, logical data model, physical data model. Conceptual data model includes important entities and relationships between them, does not specify attributes and primary keys, can be used as the foundation for logical data models. And what is logical data model? Logical data model includes all entities and relationships between them, specifies attributes and a primary key for each entity. Specifies primary key is one more complicated term that is used in database. I can explain, but I don't want to complicate it to you. So specifies foreign keys which identify the relationship between different entities, involves normalization. This is also related. Normalization is a term used for databases. Normalization is used because if you don't want to have repetitive information stored in the database, you want to make it simple such that you can have repetitive information stored only once. That is called normalization. Now, a physical data model specifies all tables and columns, includes foreign keys to identify relationships between tables, may include denormalization depending on user requirements, may be significantly different from logical model. These are all more to do with databases, so don't worry too much about this. Data modeling elements, entity or class, attribute, name, value, or meaning. Attribute basically means you can have for each entity, you can have name, you can have their alias if required, description or whatever. So all that is those are attributes, and the relationship or association is another element. Cardinality and ordinality. Have you heard this word by any chance? Cardinality and ordinality. Ordinality, have you heard? Fola and
No,
Ifi. Yeah, ordinality basically. Let me tell
no.
ordinality. What is ordinality? Ordinality is ordering. If you are placing, say, first, second, third, like that, we put no. Suppose you got some marks, or you participated in a running race. They say this person is first, this person is second, this person is third, like that. Putting that way is called ordinality. Okay. Cardinality basically means, suppose I have got some numbers, some elements. I say I have got five, five. If I say in one group, I have got five, five, three, one, two, something like that. So 5 and 5 are repeating. I'll take it as one. Five, 1, 5 only. I'll take 5, 3, 1, 2. So it is the cardinality of that is 4. So you don't need to break your head on this. Cardinality is not a term that is very important for you. But ordinality basically means putting things in order. first, second, third, fourth, like that. Metadata is about databases. Metadata is what you look at. Diagrams, you look at entity relationship diagram or crowsfoot notation. UML diagrams, UML database notation. UML is a method, way of representing the databases. So that was very popular earlier, not now. So these are all called data modeling diagrams. Entity relationship, I don't want to confuse you with this. I have already explained multiple to one to many, many to one, something like that will be there. But anyway, don't confuse with this. Okay. Now, process modeling is a standardized graphical model used to show how work is carried out. It is a foundation for process analysis. Whenever you are looking at process modeling, you need to know what are the inputs, what are the what steps you follow in the process, what are the outputs. So for that, if you are putting a standardized graphical model, so that is called process modeling, used to describe business process, system process, and program process, whatever you are doing. So if you have got a business process, we'll see how that diagram works out. Can be constructed on multiple levels, high level at enterprise level or at operational level also. You can have process model used to define current state of process as is model or potential future state. Process model includes participants, business events, steps or activities, path, decision points, and the result of the process. So if you look at the different elements of this process modeling, types of process modeling, models and notations. Process models can be like what we were discussing, data flow diagrams, unified modeling language, business process model notation, and integrated definitions. And CPOC is one thing that I have shown earlier also. CPOC model, value stream analysis. Have you heard the word value stream? Value stream by any chance? This is interesting one. You should know. Value stream. Have you heard, Fola?
Yes, value stream. Yeah.
What do you mean by value stream?
I've heard about it, but I can't explain it, but I know what it is.
Okay. Value stream, if you are there, important point. Yeah. So value stream basically means anything that adds value to the customer. See, because whatever you are doing, suppose you are doing, your business is done for some customer's benefit. So in your process, whatever is adding value to the customer, that entire chain is called value stream. You got it? So if you are doing, that's where lean model and all they talk about. No, lean, when you are cutting wastages, where do you cut wastages? If something is not adding value to the customer, you cut off. Like what we are doing now. Suppose if if I spend more time on explaining data models and all, it may not add value to you. So we have to, I can take it out of my value stream. So your value stream is something which will give value to you. That's what, if you map that entire flow of processes which add value to you, it is called value stream. Okay. Now, components of process models, activity, event, directional flow, decision point, link, role, all that. Scope models. So what is in scope, what is out of scope, all that, what defines is called scope model. Basis of understanding boundaries of scope control, scope of need, scope of solution, scope of changes. Anything that defines the boundaries of your solution is scope. Any questions on this? Scope is something which you need to understand. If you understand what is scope?
Yeah.
Okay. For scope, any question on this, Fola?
No question. Thank you.
Okay. So you should be able to define the scope of your solution. So when you are, as a business analyst, when you are discussing anything, you should not discuss something which is out of your scope. So you cannot take requirements for something which is out of your scope. You should be very clear what is in scope, what is out of scope. That is important. So when you are doing scope modeling, you need to have objective, scope of change and context, level of detail, relationships, assumptions, and scope modeling results. So there is something called use case. We have heard this word multiple times. Use case is if you are looking at who are the primary actors and secondary actors. So now, how is the interaction between primary actor and secondary actors? Our solution is use case diagram. A scenario describes, scenario when you are talking about, scenario describes just one way that an actor can accomplish a particular goal. So if you have got an actor to how the goal is achieved. Generally, how we talk about the cashier and other things. So now, if you are looking at use cases, use case diagram, relationships, extends and includes. That's what you look at. Use case description will be name, goal, actors, preconditions, trigger, flow of events, post conditions. So just we'll take this example, then you will understand. I think this is a common example. If you look at, suppose cash deposit machine is there. Now, as a customer, what do? You log in, you transact, you check your balance, you check in case you require mini statement, you can get your PIN change, you can deposit your cash, ATM machines, what you do. Yes, Fola, have you understood this? This is use case. A customer, if suppose you go to ATM, what do? If
You press to collect money now.
sorry, I didn't understand.
You collect money, cash.
Yeah, you collect money. Yes, you collect money.
Yeah.
Oh, all this, any activity that you perform. So when you get into an ATM, what do? That will have a facility for depositing. In this case, they are talking about only cash deposit machine, not ATM where you withdraw money. So they are talking about where you deposit money. So you check what is your balance. You check if you want to do PIN change, you can do. If you want to take a statement, you can take. You can deposit the cash. So those are the activities you're going to do as a customer. And these activities are updating for the bank. Suppose you are an administrator. What do? You go for say here you look at system maintenance. You collect the money what that is deposited. You generate report. You reset the system if required, system health check you do. All those things as an administrator you will do. So these are the activities when you are making use case diagram, you make use case diagram with respect to one actor. So this is called actor. So customer is an actor here, administrator is an actor here. Okay, understood, Ify?
Yes, yes.
Pola, use case diagram understood. This is very important. Business analyst should know how to draw a use case diagram. Fola, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, you understood this?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay, welcome. Now, use case description, you can have different use case, different attributes, and then a little explanation about that. You can have name, description, goals, all that information you can have. Sequence diagram. The sequence diagram is when you are making steps. So you put one step after the other. That is the sequence diagram are used to model the logic of usage scenarios by showing the information passed between objects in the system through the execution of scenarios. If you have multiple scenarios, one step after the other is what you are trying to look at. You are putting that sequence. So sequence diagram or event diagram shows how processes or objects interact during a scenario. Does not show how objects are related to each other. The order of messages is represented in a top-down or left-to-right sequence. Shows how interface components or software components interact. So what are the elements for this? You have objects or classes, lifeline. These are more technical words. Activation box, synchronous call, asynchronous call. So I don't want to dwell more on this. So generally, if you have got a sequence diagram, you can put like this: a customer request for a token. Now it is token system. Token is issued. You are able to see this sequence, no? So token system issues token. Now what happens? After some time, so the banker will display or call the token number. Now request for demand draft and get balance. So request for demand draft rejects if insufficient balance or issue the demand draft. So if these are all manual process earlier. Now it is online also, you will get this. But if you are going into the bank, you are doing some transaction. So you take a token, you go to the counter, you do either in the counter, if you want to get some information, you ask for that and get it. If you want to take a demand draft, you can take, or any other thing. So whatever you cannot perform online or through ATM, you go to the counter and get that done. So now that is the thing. So different actors are here. So token system is there, banker is there, account master is there. So you get all the, in case you wish you get balance, you get the balance also. So that's how you are putting the different steps. So steps, if you see request for token, you got the token, go to the counter. Now banker calls you, you go to the counter, request for demand draft, you got the demand draft. Got it? If he understood?
Yes.
This is called sequence tag. Follow, that is clear now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Notation is important for all these things. What you need to look for is the notation, how it is represented. Now, state modeling is, if you know different states, state means it's a different stage kind of thing. What state? So at like customer has come is one status. Went to the token machine is another state. Picked up the token is another state. Waiting for the banker to call. So banker calling is another. Banker called is another state. So like that, if you know different states, you can have that state modeling also. A set of possible states for an entity, the sequence of states that entity can be in, how an entity changes from one state to other state, the events and conditions that cause the entity to change the states, the actions that can or must be performed by the entity in each state. In each state, what are the activities to be performed? So that's how we need to look at state transition, state diagram, state tables, and initial state, state 1, state 2, how it happens. Any questions on this? What we discussed is the first part of it, as I was mentioning. So the first is specify and model requirements. That's what we discussed so far. Now later we'll go for verify requirements, validate requirements, all that. So any specific questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Now the next thing is the verify requirements. These are, I don't want to go one by one slide on these things because these are quite simple and understandable. So when you say verify requirements, what is the meaning of verify? I have already told you. The requirements, whatever is specified, you are looking at the idea of whether the requirement is, what is the requirement, whether all the requirements are captured properly or not. That is what you try to ensure. Ensure that the requirements and design specifications and models meet quality standards and are usable for the purpose. So if you have got some standards, you have to ensure that it follows the standards. That's how you look at the verify requirements. So verification is one word that we have already heard. So now you look at who will do the verification generally? Verifying the requirements, whether all the requirements are captured or not. So business analyst is one person who has to do. The second person could be the quality person, right? So I have given all the requirements, whether all the requirements are developed or not. All the requirements are meeting the quality standard or not. That is what I look at It is internal process. It's not external. Now, once you verify all the requirements and say that, okay, these requirements are captured and look to be fine, you give it for the customer to check. So that is what they will validate. Like, okay, so this part you understood that, no, FOLA, verification and validation. That difference you understood, right?
Yes.
So now there are different techniques for this: verification, acceptance and evaluation criteria, item tracking, metrics and key performance indicators, reviews. These are the different techniques that you use. Reviews are used to evaluate the content of a work product. Now we verify different elements, objectives, techniques and participants that you take, and techniques could be inspection, formal walkthrough, single-use review, informal walkthrough, whatever is the mechanism that you use to check whether all the requirements are captured or not. Now, validate. So that is the difference that we need to look at. Requirements validation is an ongoing process through a process to ensure that the stakeholders' solution and transition requirements align to the business requirements. That is important. So whether it is aligning to the business requirements or not, it also validates the designs to ensure they satisfy the stated requirements. So whatever you are saying that it is done, stakeholder should confirm that. So that is validation. So whatever we can say multiple things that things are working. And have I told you one example validation? I'll tell you my experience once, which is very interesting for you, a story. So I was in Kuwait. Are you with me?
Yes.
And I'm telling you a small story or incident that has happened for me. So I was in Kuwait implementing for one hospital, the hospital information system. One company came from Germany. They were giving bedside computers. They were giving bedside computers. They were setting up everything, and computer was set up. They were setting up around 40 bedside computers. For them, 21 bedside computers were working all right. 20 computers were not working all right. So they were struggling. So then the director called me on a Friday. Friday is a holiday there. I was at my room. So he called me, hospital director, to ask me. He told me that they are facing some problem. Can you look at it? Actually, I didn't know anything about that. I went there to check. I said, okay, let me try. So I went there and I checked. So what was happening was 21 computers, they were connecting to the local server, hospital server, and everything was happening well. Another 20 servers were not connecting. So then I asked them what is happening, what is there in the computer. They said there is one chip they are putting. So can I see what is there in the chip? In the chip, what you have written? So they showed me from some other chip. They showed me how it is written, what is the program. I understood what was happening there. So I asked him, whatever is there in the non-working computer, I want to see. Not the working computers, non-working computer, I want to see what it is. They started saying everything what you are seeing here is there in that. I rejected that statement. Then I asked them, find out somehow, I want to see. So then I had to contact their guy who was in Germany, and that guy told how to see. So then we saw that. Then what they did was, whatever they tested, when they tested at their local machine in Germany, that was kept like that in the program, and they fixed that card chip. They have finalized and closed the chip with that. So you can't override the chip once you have closed. So now that means that server is trying to connect their server in Germany, not the local server in Kuwait. You got it, Fola? What I said?
Yes.
So there is a problem that for them it works all right. When they tested in their environment, it was working all right. When it came to client's environment, it was not working all right. So it was not. That's the validation. Unless you test that, at client environment. So in your environment, you show that everything is working all right. Because the moment you change the environment, it may not work. If you remember when you asked me about that debit side, the liabilities and assets, I told that only. If I add 5 more transactions also, it should work. You say it is working, doesn't mean it is working for me. I put another 5 transactions in test and say it is working. Then only it is called validation. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, what was the question on this example you just gave you? What was
Yeah.
your job for you? Where were you a business analyst or a network and administrator?
I found that they are connecting to their server. It should be we call it as generic one. See, the link when you're writing, you should not write specific to local thing. So you should make it generic such that anywhere you put that particular environment, it picks up. So now when I found that, I told them, so then they said, okay, ship back all those 20 chips we'll replace. So that's how they decided. So now it is, I mean, business analyst has nothing to do in what I told, but I said, what is the validation?
Oh,
A thing
okay.
that works in your environment need not work in client environment. Yeah. So you should ensure that it works in client environment. Any requirement, you say that, okay, this is given. In their case, the business requirement is it has to connect to client's server. That's the requirement.
Okay.
It did not connect to client server. That was the problem.
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Now, validate requirements, identify assumptions, define measurable evaluation criteria. So for any validation, you need to have measurable evaluation criteria. With that, you should align the solution with evaluate alignment with the solution scope. That is important. So if you ensure that, then if it is working all right, excuse me. See, sometimes what happens, clients also test too many things. So you may not take all those things. For that, if you want to control the client, you need to have what is the criteria that they have to test. They cannot test everything. So because if they want to test in some other scenario and all, you don't accept. In which scenario it has to work. So that evaluation criteria also, if you fix, then it becomes easy. Otherwise, client will never accept. So you say test for these parameters, and if it is working, you should go ahead. So that's how we look at evaluation criteria. Is another important thing that business analyst should insist. Okay. Now, business for guidelines will be business objectives, future state description, potential value, solution scope. Now, different techniques are acceptance and evaluation criteria, document analysis, financial analysis, item tracking, metrics and key performance indicators, reviews, risk analysis, and management. These are different ways you can do validation of requirements. Clear? Ify, any questions?
So I have a question. So I don't know, maybe because of time, but tomorrow, can you just expatiate a little on this techniques and?
Yeah, we can do that. Not an issue.
Please. Thank you.
Okay, requirement analysis and design definition. So it will be okay. Requirement analysis and design definition. We are talking about defined requirements architecture. So if you look at requirements architecture, what do you mean by that? So if you have inputs, could be how you want to manage the information management approach, and the requirements. Requirements, different requirements, whatever state it is, and the solution scope. Based on that, you need to define the requirements architecture. Basically, what do you mean by architecture is the question. So define requirements architecture task is to ensure that the requirements collectively support one another to fully achieve the objectives. So you need to say which requirement is dependent on which requirement, which is first, which is second, putting everything. So what are the attributes? Like I was talking about yesterday, when you are taking the requirements, you put them into requirement traceability matrix, and then you put Moscow analysis. You remember, you know Moscow analysis, Fola? Yesterday I was explaining Moscow analysis.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Must
I know
have Moscow, right? So must, could, should, and the would not. So what you don't take up. So that's an important thing. Must and should are important things that you need to provide. And could can be, you can compromise on could requirements, and what you don't consider as important, you don't look at providing them. Putting them into that is the architecture. And if you are putting the dependencies, one requirement over the other requirement, unless I do the first requirement, I may not be able to take up the second requirement. So everything, putting that sequence, everything is called the architecture. So that architecture is important. Now, for this defined requirement architecture, requirements, viewpoints and views, template architecture, completeness, relate and verify requirements relationships, business analysis information architecture. These are the elements that you look at when you are looking at requirements architecture. Now, requirement architecture, the actual requirements and designs for a particular solution from a specific viewpoint. Because different viewpoints, like use cases we spoke about. So if you are looking at different viewpoints, how these requirements should be captured is an important thing. Requirement architecture for a specific solution is collection of views. So that is one point. Different viewpoints you can take. So when you are saying the requirement architecture, you can have these use case diagrams to understand how different requirements are. So it is a way of representation. Architecture framework used as a template to start defining the architecture. The completeness is an architecture helps ensuring that a set of requirements is completed. Now you defined necessary, correct, ambiguous, consistent, relate and verify requirements. Requirements, whether they are defined properly or not. So this is stated. They should be unambiguous, because it cannot be, all requirements should be defined properly and they should be consistent. This word consistent you see multiple times, because requirements, what happens is, when you collect the requirement, you collect it as an information. Somebody documents. It can be somebody records, or some people will write down, and that information comes. That information is translated as requirements in BRS document, business requirement specification document. Now those requirements will be changed to requirement traceability matrix for tracking, because BRS documents for each function, they will be separate, all that. So you want to have all these things in a collective manner. So you put it into requirement traceability matrix. Now, when you look at requirement traceability matrix, the requirement that you captured in requirement traceability matrix and the requirement that you captured in business BRS document, and the requirement that has come from the stakeholder as the initial information, everything should be consistent. If it is not consistent, if it is not unambiguous, then further down, if it goes to development, then it will be more chaos. You will not be able to, they will not understand what the requirement is. And if you want to do something, something else will come up. Have you seen any time the software development, one joke, how it happens in software development? Ola, it is like somebody wants, say they want an elephant. This guy says, I have, yeah, I can always, I have something I can customize. This fellow has a buffalo. So their elephant requires 4 legs. Buffalo has 4 legs. Elephant requires a tail. Buffalo has a tail. Only thing is, buffalo has 2 horns extra that he has to remove. And elephant requires 2 tusks. So the horns, he will put it as tusks, and elephant requires what you call that trunk, no? So that he'll put an extension. So like that, people will think. So what customer wants and what these guys are giving could be totally different. So that should not happen. It should be in sync with what customer requires. If you understood what I said, if possible, I'll show you that cartoon later, tomorrow or day after tomorrow. I'll show you the cartoon. Have you understood how software requirements work generally?
Yes.
Yeah, that is the thing. So it should not go that way. So the idea is when they are talking about consistency, unambiguous, so any requirement that you capture should be consistent and unambiguous, and it should be correct. All necessary information should be there. That's important. Structures of, sorry, if you told anything?
No, sorry, that was me. Sorry.
Okay, no issues. So define requirements architecture. Architecture management, you can use architecture management software or regulatory information. Some methodologies or frameworks you can use. There are different techniques for this. Functional decomposition, data modeling, organizational modeling, scope modeling, interviews, workshops, all these things are used for defining the requirement architecture. And the stakeholders, as usual, you have domain subject matter expert, implementation subject matter expert, project manager, sponsor, tester, any stakeholders. Okay, we'll stop it at this stage. Any question you have? Any specific questions you have?
I don't have any questions. I'm okay. Thank you.
Ify, you have any questions?
I'm okay.
Right. So we'll be talking about defined design options, I think, and vendor assessment tomorrow before we conclude this. So with that, we'll be concluding this knowledge area, and then we'll take up the last knowledge area that we have. That would be, let me just show you that. It is solution evaluation. Solution evaluation.
Okay.
We have completed these 5. So this is the 5th one we are doing. So after that, we do solution evaluation. After solution evaluation, we have got 2 more things to talk about: the agile perspective and business intelligence perspective. We'll just do that and close the entire topic, entire course rather. Okay.
Sorry, I wanted to request at the end of this class, can you just give us some sample interview questions that, just high level, please?
Yeah. Let me just check that. I'll do that.
Okay, thank you.
Just remind me next week.
I'll remind you. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Ify. Good night.
Good night.